How often do you sit down to get work done, only to find yourself picking up your phone and scrolling through it, or rereading the same 3 emails time and time again, wondering where all your time went and why your day wasn't productive? Well, if you're like most of us, it happens more often than you'd like. We live in a world designed to steal our attention. Notifications dinging, emails, which are often just unsolicited requests for information, endless scrolling on social media, and the constant fear of missing out. It's not just frustrating, it's actually costing you. Because when you're distracted, you're more stressed. Your productivity decreases. You end up enjoying life less, and let's be real, you end up making less money. But here's the good news. You can take control of your focus. In this video, I'm sharing 7 hard-earned lessons to regain your focus, plus a bonus rule at the end that ties it all together. And trust me, this one is so powerful. When put in place, you don't need the rest of them at all. So stay to the end to find out what that one is. The first step to staying focused isn't what most people think. It isn't about willpower. Instead, it's about your environment. Your surroundings dictate your behavior. Distractions don't just happen in your mind, but instead they're built into your environment. Think about the difference when you have a pantry stocked of all healthy items versus a table full of cakes and pies. It's way easier to say yes to the good stuff when that's around you. The way to incorporate this is to start by blocking distractions. Turn off notifications. Make sure there's no pings going off while you're trying to do deep work. You can use apps like Freedom or Cold Turkey to block distracting websites, and you can set up for when you check email and Slack so that it's not constantly coming in unsolicited. James Clear, in his fantastic book Atomic Habits, which I have a quick video guide up here which summarizes the book in just 2 minutes. James Clear explains that you don't rise to the level of your goals. Instead, you fall to the level of your systems. By creating a distraction-free environment, you make it easier to focus and harder to get off track. Next up for rule number 2, we have master single tasking. Multitasking, it's a myth. And I think we can all remember about 10 years ago where if you're applying to a job, you had to have multitasking as a key skill in that. But it's not true. Every time you switch tasks, your brain wastes time and energy to get refocused. Because in reality, you don't actually multitask. Instead, you single task, but you switch constantly, which means that you can never get into the flow of that work. And that's why multitasking actually makes you slower, more prone to make mistakes, and thereby less productive. So instead, try embracing single tasking. Block out your time for just one task at a time. And when you're working on it, give it your full attention. A method you could try is called the Pomodoro technique, where you work for 25 straight minutes and then you take a 5-minute break. This allows you that focused time with some reset. And this idea is backed by Cal Newport as he outlines in his book, Deep Work, which is one of my favorite books of all time. In this, Newport argues that multitasking fractures your ability to think deeply. So in order to do meaningful, high-quality work, you need uninterrupted focus and time. And that means working on one thing at a time. Moving on to rule number 3, we have to prioritize ruthlessly. Not all tasks are created equal. Some move the needle and others are just busy work. The trick is to focus on what truly matters, because when we're distracted and stressed, we're less likely to work on the actual important tasks and more likely to focus on the busy work. One tool that I love is the Eisenhower matrix. If you're not familiar with this, I highly recommend checking it out. It helps you categorize tasks into 4 different categories: urgent and important, important but not urgent, urgent but not important, and neither important nor urgent. You want to try to spend as much time as you can in the important but not urgent quadrant. What happens to most of us is we get stuck in the urgent but not important. By focusing in the right quadrant, you're able to move the needle on things that can take the actual amount of time that they need to be high quality work. And here's a tip: apply the 80-20 rule, which means that 80% of the results come from 20% of your inputs. Ask yourself, what 20% can I do that will eliminate a whole bunch of other stuff? What 20% will give me the highest output of results? Focus there, and as Tim Ferriss says, become comfortable in having a lot of little bad things happen to you. Because the more important work you do, the less time you'll have for the shallow, unimportant. Next up we have leverage technology wisely. Technology is a double-edged sword where it can either boost your productivity or greatly hinder it. You can use technology to capture ideas. Use a calendar so that you aren't having to think about when you have meetings. And use productivity tools like Notion, Trello, or Monday to document where projects are at and what needs to be done. This frees up your mental bandwidth from having to remember everything so that you can focus on the creative output that only you can do and a computer can't. But the double-edged sword of this is don't rely solely on it. Some people spend so much time inputting everything into their devices that they aren't actually getting any work done. They're doing what they used to call paper shuffling. So make sure your time is being spent in what's providing value. Moving on, we have to train your brain to focus. Focus is like a muscle, and like any muscle, you have to train it. It starts off weak, but with more training, it gets stronger and stronger. One of the best ways to do this is through mindfulness or meditation. Even just 10 minutes a day has greatly helped me. It allows all my thoughts to consolidate and allows me to start the day without feeling panic and like everything's overwhelming. Apps like Calm or Headspace are a great way to get started with this. And it's not just fluff. There's tons of research that shows that daily meditation can help rewire your brain to handle distractions and stress better. Another interesting thing that has really helped me is to embrace boredom. And this allows my brain to resist the urge to constantly task switch. Things like when I'm in the line at the grocery store. Instead of when I get that urge to check my phone, I just stand there and let the situation happen. I talk about this a lot more in my video up here, which is all about dopamine detox. Moving on to rule number 6, and that is to protect your energy. Your ability to focus depends highly on your energy level. If you're running on empty, even the best distraction-free techniques will be a struggle. So make sure you're prioritizing sleep, nutrition, and exercise. This helps recharge your battery so that you have more to give. And another pro tip that many people use is to schedule your most important work when your energy is the highest. For most of us, that's first thing in the morning before we've been bombarded by fires and distractions. But for other people, like a lot of creatives and writers, this could be late at night when the rest of the world is sleeping. Find what works for you and utilize it. And if you're wanting a little more info into the science of sleep, Matthew Walker, in his great book, Why We Sleep, explains how poor sleep drastically affects our productivity and our creativity, which means that getting the adequate amount of sleep is absolutely crucial for providing impact in the world. On to rule number 7 is embracing the power of saying no. Every time you say yes to a distraction, you're saying no to a focus. Every time you're saying yes to someone else's priority, you're saying no to yours. Set clear boundaries, not just with others, but also with yourself. If someone asks for your time and it doesn't align with your priorities, learn to politely say no. Greg McKeown, in his book Essentialism, which I have another video up here outlining, calls this the discipline of saying no to the trivial many so that you can say yes to the vital few. When you start saying no to other people's distractions and not taking their monkeys, you'll have more time and energy for what matters to you and your priorities. And now, as promised, here's the bonus rule, the one that makes everything else void. And that is to work on projects that truly matter. The secret to staying ultra focused is to only work on projects that are so important, so impactful, that you don't want to work on anything else. Ones that demand your undivided attention. Let me explain this with a story. Imagine I offered you $1 million to solve a 1,000-piece puzzle in 2 hours. My guess is you would absolutely lock in. You wouldn't allow phone calls, having to do dishes, or answering other people's messages. Instead, you would lock in and do everything you can to finish that puzzle in 2 hours. You wouldn't need any of these other focus tips because you know that $1 million prize is more valuable than anything else you could do in those 2 hours. A way that you can incorporate this is before you start a project, ask yourself these questions. Is it urgent? Is it very important? Is it clearly defined? And does it have a big enough payoff? If the answer to these questions are yes, then you won't need to worry about your focus. It will just happen. Now let's recap the 7 rules to get laser focused. Design your environment for focus, not distractions. Embrace single tasking. Protect your energy. Leverage technology wisely. Embrace the power of saying no. And of course, work on projects that truly matter. Now I want to hear from you. Down in the comments, what is your biggest source of distractions and how will you apply these techniques to overcome them? Thanks so much for watching, and if you're interested in more videos on personal and professional development, please consider subscribing and stay notified in my latest videos. Thanks, and we'll see you in the next one up here.